Okay, now we're going to be talking about conflict resolution. How can we minimize intergroup conflict? What can we do to, if not prevent it, how can we resolve an already existing conflict? Basically, the contact hypothesis talks about, essentially the basis being that getting group members together, having contact can potentially reduce conflict. But the contact that happened between the rattlers and the eagles at the Robbers Cave study did not reduce the hostility. So you got to figure out what kind of contact might be appropriate. And this is the key here. There are these four conditions of intergroup contact in order for the contact hypothesis to work. In order for contact to reduce conflict, this is what needs to be done. There needs to be an environment where they have equal status. If there is one group that has a higher status, higher power, then you're going to have a problem and there's not going to be any kind of resolution. So making sure that the members are equal, background, qualities, and so on, such that there's not a sense of one dominating the other. Having common goals is an important thing that can help reduce conflict. So if the group members that are meeting, if the groups that are meeting have common goals for both groups, then that should work. And we're talking, for example, in the Robbers Cave study, they had to pull a truck out of the mud, and they needed both groups of boys to do it. So that was an example. And so again, having cooperation, that's really the better example of cooperation. Working on a task that both needs to be done, and there's going to be cross-group interaction. There's going to be they're going to do better at they're going to having more positive feelings toward each other if they're working together on something. The common goals actually, probably the better example might be is if they have a competition with an outside group, a third group, that maybe the two groups that are in conflict can join together on that common goal. Finally, there should be a circumstance where the groups are put together that there are norms that are encouraging positive interactions. In other words, a pleasant environment. It should be laughing, it should be fun, it should be enjoyable, it should lead to positive emotions, not anger. But again, the norms and the authority as far as enforcing those norms needs to be there. So bottom line, these are the conditions that are that would make contact between groups in conflict, make them more likely to resolve the conflict. So, for example, at the Robbers Cave study, they had the superordinate goal of trying to work together on something. So a superordinate goal is a goal that is for both groups, a higher goal for both groups that they both can work on, that they both can try to achieve. So they're working together on it. Cooperation, again, like pulling that truck out of the mud. The common enemy. So finding that common enemy that they can work together against is a way in which groups can be solidified, and that's been shown. Again, if you have if there is a leader of a nation that wants to, fight against another nation, they can, get people within their own nation, groups within their own nation working together to fight the common enemy, like communism being the common enemy back in the 50s. Okay. Online contacts. The contact does not necessarily even have to be face-to-face. You can have virtual contact as well that can, having these conditions that can reduce conflict. Finally, developing friendships is where you can develop long-term relationships with members of another group, and that paves the way for a longer-term solution to intergroup conflict problems. So those conditions we talked about, especially with the positive emotions, developing friendships, could be is certainly useful for maintaining high level of to making conflict be reduced. But so that would be the high quality contact. But even any kind of contact is better than no contact whatsoever. So even if the contact is not ideal, any contact is better than no contact at all. It's going to be best, however, in a recreational circumstance. Again, that makes sense. The recreation leads to these more positive emotions and whatnot. So that is a circumstance where you could reduce conflict, is getting groups together in kind of a pleasant recreational environment, recreational circumstance. Maybe they could work together on common goals. This is a good way of helping to reduce conflict. You remember we talked about categorization. When you put people into categories, you're a member of this group, so you're in that category. I'm a member of my group, so I'm in my category. One of the things you could do is decategorize. You can start seeing the person from another group as a human being, rather than just a member of a category. So you can so the more you get to know the person, you can essentially separate them from just being a group member to being a human being. You could also even recategorize the person by creating a common in-group model. The common in-group identity model is now you can take members of two groups, putting them together and forming a new in-group that includes this out-group member. And so now it's a new in-group. So in other words, you're making your in-group. So in other words, for example, you think about the Rattlers and the Eagles in the Robbers Cave study. They can join together and just call themselves the Campers to fight against another camp, let's say, to compete against another camp. Now they've created a new in-group that they both belong to, even though they are from separate subgroups, let's say. But now you can create a new in-group for them to be joining. That's also relevant if you think about the discussion about the hockey team from the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. They had players from different parts of the country, different colleges that they played for, so they were already in different groups. But then when they joined the Olympic team, now they were in a common in-group, and they developed that social identity in being in that in-group. Cross-categorization, this is where you can make cross-friendships, cross-relationships with members of the out-group and create new categories there by, again, so now you can form connections between the in-group and the out-group, and that can help reduce that sense of distinct categories. Finally, controlling stereotype thinking is important. You want to be able to reduce you want to try to think of people as individuals rather than as just members of that group and having that group's qualities. So whenever time you're thinking about you're about to have a conversation with somebody and a particular stereotype comes into your head before you have that interaction, try to control that and try to see this person as a human being, as an individual, rather than just as an out-group member.